Hey first graders, I'm here to talk about math lesson 8.2. It's called halves, and we're going to talk about equal shares today. So that word, equal shares, means that two things have the same amount. So they're sharing the same. So to practice, if you have anything laying around, they wanted us to draw a shape and try and share it equally, okay? So if you want to try and draw one, you can pause the video and draw a shape and then try and share it so that if you were sharing it with a friend, maybe you pretend it's a cake or a pie or a cracker or something like that. If you were sharing it with your brother or sister or a friend, how could you make sure you both got the same amount, okay? So that's what we're going to look at today. So I'm going to draw first for you a shape, and you'll tell me if you think it's equal shares or not. So here's my cracker, and this is the way I split it up so that I could have this part and my friend could have this part. Do you think that looks equal? I do too. How about this one? Is this an equal share? If this was a pizza, which part of the pizza do you want? Because I want that part. So is that equal shares? Nope, because they're not the same. All right, one more. Is that equal shares? Nope, because which side of the pizza or which side of the cracker or whatever would you want? You want the bigger one. So that's not equal shares. So today we're going to be looking at how you can make sure that's equal. You want them both to look exactly the same, okay? And then we're going to talk about what those are called. So when you split things in two, like Miss Lumsden just showed you with all of these, you're splitting things in two. You're making two different pieces that are the same. You're at two equal shares. So this side is the same as this side is the same as this side, okay? There's two equal shares. It means that if you split this in half, you would want either half because they're both the same. We're going to name today what we call that, okay? So when you chop it, I've already said one of the words, which is half. You're chopping it in half. When there's two shares, it's half. And you've heard that word before. So you could call it half or 1/2. Remember, this is just talking about the one side. So if I say half, I'm talking about this part. I'm not talking about the whole thing. So there could be a half, a 1/2. Or how many parts do you see when you chop these up? I see 1, 2 parts. There's 2 parts. So you could have 1 out of 2 parts. Okay? So that's the names of one side of the share. So you could say, well, I got half, I got 1/2, or I got 1 of 2 parts. And now to name of all the shares, so if you're talking about the whole cracker or this whole shape, you would call it whole, like I just said. You could call it whole. Or you could say how many pieces there are. There's 2, so instead of being 1/2, it would be 2 halves. Or you have all parts. 2 out of 2 parts would be the other way you could call, would be the other thing you could call this, okay? So today, the thing that you need to be focused on is if you can name these parts, okay? So you're going to divide shapes and make sure you know how to name those parts. So if you divide it in half, you're going to be checking to see if it's equal shares. Did you divide it in half correctly? And then knowing what to call these parts. So we know that this is a half. And then this is over here. This, if you have the whole thing, it's a whole, or it's 2 halves, okay? So you can practice by drawing some shapes and maybe trying to cut them in half yourself and thinking, what is this called? What do I call these halves, okay? So you're just making sure that you know that when you split something equally, 2 shares, 2 equal shares, one of those shares is called a half. All right, I'll be back to talk to you tomorrow about fourths. Bye.